This is Legends and Libations.
Sipping through history.
Let the journey begin.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Legends and Libations. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Jesse.
And we are here for a special Halloween episode. If you can't tell,
What a good holiday, right?
Exactly. It seems to be a really big holiday for a lot of people.
Like the new Christmas, right?
Exactly.
Do you recall the time when spooky season became like the epithet for Halloween?
And you have to spell it like SZN. You have to like completely devowel it so people know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just such a strange, like, because I don't remember that as a child. There was no such thing as spooky season.
There might have been like one house that had some decorations other than like a pumpkin.
Certainly decorations are part of it, but no one called it that. No one was like, hey, it's spooky season.
Right.
But now there are people who are like...
It's all October long, pretty much.
And they're sold on this. They're like, guess what? It's October,
exactly.
And it's Halloween, and they're just loving it. They're loving it.
I do like the part where you can have an excuse to watch a scary movie like every night for a month too. Because I didn't like scary movies when I was little. They terrified me, to be honest. So I had to like make myself get into them in the last few years.
I have been really trying to get into them. I'm very bad at scary movies.
Well, most scary movies have a terrible plot.
Yeah. Recently watched Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods is a great scary movie.
That was not what I expected.
No, exactly. It's like a satirical take on
Absolutely.
all the spooky movies put together.
You notice it was like 3 movies at once. It's like you had the typical Cabin in the Woods, then you had this weird sci-fi touch.
Yeah.
And then you had this weird ancient gods ritual touch, and you're like, this is 3 different movies just brought together.
Yeah, I think that was part of the commentary.
Yep.
Throw in as much things at the wall and see if they stick.
And my God, they threw a lot of things at the wall.
Yeah, they do. Literally everything.
You know what they really didn't throw?
A pumpkin.
A pumpkin. Exactly. And you know what? Today I was really...
Ooh, this pumpkin comes with surprises.
Yeah, because it's Halloween, I have 3 special beers for each of us.
Okay.
So today we're going to start off with Southern Tier.
Look at that.
Pumpkin. Southern Tier is in Jamestown, New York, or close to there. It's an Imperial Pumpkin Ale. We're looking at 8.6%.
It's got a cool picture of a pumpkin with a crown.
Yeah, he has like an 80s jumpsuit
and a Flavor Flav clock medallion.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that are trying to do too much at one time.
Yeah, this is one of them. He has like pirate boots, jumpsuit, Flavor Flav medallion. He has spike bracelets.
I've always kind of wanted a spike bracelet.
Did you never wear one?
No, I didn't wear that, but I had the like the studded belt that you would kind of see with this kind of aesthetic, but I was too afraid to wear it at school or like in public in general. So
you were afraid to wear it, like too much.
It was too bold of a statement.
Too bold.
Mm-hmm. That'd have been like that would have been as weird as me getting my ears pierced, probably, if I had worn that.
Wow.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I get that. I actually my mom made me get my ear pierced when I was in, I think, 5th grade. My little brother really wanted it. Yeah, my little brother really wanted it, but then he got scared and wouldn't do it. So she made me get it.
If Jesse's going to get his ear pierced, then you're brave enough to get yours pierced too.
No, it was so he would do it because he wouldn't do it. Cheers.
All right, we're going to try this pumpkin. This looks like it's pretty strong.
Yeah.
It said 8%.
8.6.
Ooh, don't forget the 0.6. What do you think?
Tastes like pumpkin pie.
Interesting. It definitely has like an after like smell sort of thing that's just like pumpkin pie.
Yeah, like the aftertaste, but like then before it's
fine. I think like I was expecting something to hit me with like a big pumpkin offensive flavor.
No,
it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it tastes like I'm a beer, but also here's a pumpkin pie at the end.
Exactly. You get the main course and the dessert.
Yeah, it's kind of delicious.
I actually like it.
Yeah, this is really, really. It's been a while since I've been in the Southern Tier. It was a cool little brewery, but it's been many moons since I've been there.
I'm glad that you knew about it.
Yeah, when I saw this there, I was like, oh wow, a New York beer.
Where did you get this?
I found it at.
Was it at a
Fresh
liquor
Market.
store? Oh, okay.
Fresh Market had it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, one of the cool things though about this being from New York is a particular story I wanted to tell you.
Well, this really gets us close to the heart of the legend.
Yeah, this is the heart of the legend.
All right. What is the story, Jesse?
So you've heard of the Headless Horseman. I'm always afraid I'm going to say it wrong when I look. I'm like, oh, the Headless Horseman. Like, I'm going to say something else. But yeah, have you heard of the Headless Horseman before today? Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's iconic Halloween horror ghost material.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is been retold over and over and over again, right?
Well, it's good material, so
Yeah,
you got to get your mileage out of it.
So yeah, absolutely. Mileage has to come from it. Well, I want to tell you some of the original story as it would have been heard.
Okay.
So
Hit me with it. Set
I need you
the
to
scene.
set-
Yeah.
Let me I guess put yourself in early revolutionary America.
So with like muskets and gunpowder, and
Muskets, gunpowder, and then you have those weird like
most of my friends dying of typhoid and things like that.
but also that like there was obviously civilized areas, but it's not like Europe where so much of it has been explored over and
Right.
over again. This is still America where it's untouched.
hmm The whole country is the Wild West.
Yeah.
It's the Wild West hemisphere.
Yeah, exactly. The wild Western hemisphere.
Yeah.
And what we are seeing here is like outside of the little colonies we have,
hmm
there is so much mystery.
Right.
There's animals they haven't seen before.
hmm
There's
People.
these natives that are really like sometimes really scary, and there's stories about them like they're kind of like ritual religion, and they're kind of like
hmm
mystic like sense and their connection with nature.
When you think about the type of people that immigrated to America from Europe, probably it was a lot of times people groups that had very different beliefs or very homogenous beliefs amongst their people.
Yeah.
And so that they would often view outside cultures as like vastly different in a mysterious way.
Yeah.
So they're just like planted right in the middle of that, being around native cultures and like places that they're unfamiliar with.
Yeah, but they're also bringing all of their folklore with them.
So it kind of mixes a little
Yeah,
bit.
there's legends of goblins and werewolves and vampires, and all this is coming and moving into this new space that's so untouched. Which, remember, if we recall, like for a little bit from Sir Orpheus, a lot of those like Fey world, goblin, elf things are symbols of nature, and here nature was still so heavy, so very heavy. So put yourself there for a moment. Okay. So you're drinking beer with a couple lads.
Sleepy Hollow Boys.
Sleepy Hollow Boys. I love that that's their name. The Sleepy Hollow Boys.
I try to think of like a crime that sounds like something that the Sleepy Hollow Boys would do.
Hiding pins in the hay set.
Exactly. It's like putting the razor blades in the trick or treat candy.
Yeah.
That apparently had never ever been a single instance of this happening, but yet it was like a rumor for a long time that don't take candy from strangers on Halloween because people will put razor blades in it. Yeah.
Who would do that?
Satanic panic people.
Oh, jeez. Well, anyways, we're really just right after the Revolutionary War. I didn't realize this, but the British hired a lot of German soldiers, like mercenaries.
I didn't know that either. At one point, it said it made up to 25% of their land force in America.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And these guys were known as Haitian soldiers, right? And so during one of these battles close to Sleepy Hollow, there was a soldier who he was doing his part. He was fighting for his family at home. He was
fighting for that mercenary paycheck.
He was like, you know what? I'm going to bring back some money.
Yeah.
Some gold.
Whatever the currency of the day was.
Pounds, I guess.
Yes.
Some pounds. And then he unlike taking an arrow to the knee like they do in Skyrim, he took a cannonball to the head.
and it blew his entire head off.
Yeah, just gone.
Yeah, like running a motorcycle under an 18-wheeler.
Do you remember the movie The Patriot?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that there's a scene where a guy gets his head blown?
Oh,
by
yes.
the cannonball
Yes.
bounces.
He's wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, wrong place. The typical Haitian soldier would wear a blue coat. They wouldn't wear red coats. They would wear their blue coat. They'd look like
We'll fight for the British, but we're not any of those
like
red
that.
coats. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not wearing those red coats.
Give me that Hugo Boss.
Mm.
So
Well,
the
anyways.
cannonball takes off his head. He's
Yeah.
done.
He's gone. He's gone. Well, in Sleepy Hollow, they take those bodies of the dead and just bury them in an unmarked grave because they don't know who he is. He's
Right.
just some mercenary.
Yeah.
But this guy,
His family's not there to claim
Yeah.
him because they're across the ocean, probably.
he has no social security card in his pocket.
We
Apparently,
can't identify him by his dental records.
yeah, because we don't know. He doesn't even know where his head is.
Good point. I wasn't even thinking about that. That's funny.
So yeah, it's just not an option. So what
Unmarked
happens-
grave.
unmarked grave,
Churchyard.
nice big oak tree with the gnarly branches, like really scenic. Right?
Mhm.
Like we want to pass by this place and kind of look at it and pretend like we're having an experience with it because it's kind of freaky, but that's where he's buried.
Right.
Well,
It's one of those iconic trees.
yeah, this one's perfect for Halloween.
Yeah.
Owl sits on it. And
Mhm.
oh, damn, something's
Yeah.
happening.
It's got the hollowed out spot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in that space, on the eve of Halloween,
Mhm.
they realize something. His body comes up from the ground.
Oh, wow.
He goes on a horse, a black horse. Now what I've read is this horse is a goblin horse. It's not just a.
What's a goblin horse?
These are good questions. I couldn't really figure out why it defines it as a goblin horse and not like what makes it a goblin.
I bet Google would not be very helpful.
No,
we
not
ask
at all.
What a goblin horse is.
Well, because the goblin, if we again connect it to like the fays, the fey
Mhm.
creatures, it's that like chaotic world.
I see what you mean.
That space where so this is no like regular horse. It's maybe like one of those. It's a hellhound, but hell horse,
Uh-huh.
goblin horse. It comes from the dark powers and stuff. Whatever this guy did before he died, he had some bad juju.
Mhm.
Like he was
Some
carrying
bad
some
karma.
demons.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't die and have rest in peace. That's not what he had.
It wasn't just a run of the mill like soldier that got his
Yeah.
head taken off. He was probably someone notorious for being
He must have been
ruthless and
Yeah.
bloodthirsty,
because
extra vicious.
every Halloween, what does he do? He gets up,
Mm-hmm.
goes on a gallop. The galloping. I love in the book where it says I forget exactly. Galloping Hessian horseman.
Mm-hmm.
It's really like a tongue twister right there.
It is.
I love it. But he goes chasing after his head.
He's looking for his lost head.
Well, but anyone in Germanic folklore, this guy's also attached to the reverence, which
Okay.
would
What's
do
that?
this. They were the dead that would come alive, and they would touch people to bring them to the place of the dead.
So if you got touched by one, that means that you were going to die.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so this is like this lore is kind of hanging around Sleepy Hollow.
Okay.
And not even just on Halloween, because that's like later legends say, oh, he only appears on Halloween. Earlier legends suggest that he comes
Every night.
Every night.
Mhm.
And he's riding along the road. But he seems confined to a space.
Right. As
Yeah.
spirits sometimes are,
Yeah.
which is very interesting.
What's also interesting is that when I first read it, I was like, he's a solid figure he has like a horse that's galloping.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel the dust. You can feel like everything with him. Well, and he's called a ghost multiple times. I found out something really interesting about Ghost.
What did you find out about ghosts?
Okay, think about this for a minute. When you think of Ghost, what's your initial thought? Like, what do they look like?
You mean besides like the cartoon Scooby-Doo ghost where it's just like a white sheet
Yeah.
over somebody?
Like the Instagram reels that all happen.
Well, we had to distinguish the white sheet from the KKK, so we ended up making the ghost just like a transparent person.
Like Harry Potter, they're all transparent.
Yeah, exactly. You know it's a ghost, you can see through it.
Yeah. But that apparently idea of Ghost doesn't come about until film.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't have the idea that ghosts were transparent.
So were the ghosts just like solid?
Solid, or they would possess things, or they would take over animals, things like that. They were
Wow.
So But because in the cameras, whenever people like left the picture before the picture was done developing, it'd leave like a shadow of them. It became
So it was like a trick of the photography gave
norm.
rise to what we now think of as a ghost.
Yeah. But before that ghost,
They were not transparent.
no.
Wow.
So now it feels much more like, okay, here's this ghost.
Right. I have so many questions about how like this originated though. Like so when people see ghosts now, they think that they're transparent, right? Most of the time.
Yeah.
But before, if the ghost could be solid or possess an object or something, then that means that like broadens your definition of ghost.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything always broadens our definition.
That's true.
But this whole Sleepy Hollow area, it's removed from the city. It's a little Dutch town. It comes with the Dutch folklore. And there's this Haitian soldier who died and now possesses the land. He runs around it at night.
And he attacks people.
Exactly. Well, and another thing I found out about goblins, we're talking about is goblin horses. Goblins, apparently, some legends say that during day goblins become stone, so he can't stay out during the day.
Oh, it's like the
Explains why he
trolls.
might run to find safety. But by morning, he's always back in his grave.
So if you haven't noticed yet, we are doing the Legend of Sleepy Hollow
Yeah,
for this episode. We kind of buried the lead a little bit there, but that was the rendition that our main character, Ichabod Crane, would have heard at the party that he was at in the story.
Yeah.
And let's go into the backstory of the story a little bit.
Yeah. So the story, it's by Washington Irving.
It was written or published in 1820.
Yeah, 1820. Not that long after the American Revolution.
Right, 1820, but it takes place in 1790.
Yep.
So 30 years before the publishing date is when it takes place in Sleepy Hollow, New York, which is like a very small settlement outside of somewhere called Tarrytown.
It used to literally be called North Tarrytown, but in 96 they officially changed it to Sleepy Hollow.
Oh,
That's what
really?
everyone knew it as.
That's cool.
Yeah. What a name to have for a town. It's so poetic.
Yes.
Sleepy Hollow. Like,
apparently nowadays they have like a big tourism problem with like this part of the year. When I was Googling this, all I found were articles about people flocking to Sleepy Hollow. Yeah, because you could have like a tour and visit the churchyard where the Hessian was allegedly buried and stuff like that.
yeah, if you guys ever want us to go on tour,
The offer always stands.
we will always leave our lives for this. We will do podcast on scene.
So there was something in the air of this Sleepy Hollow place to warrant the name Sleepy Hollow. It seems like the residents there were kind of already predisposed to believing in ghost stories, supernatural things.
People were like kind of like, well, because they're bringing those folklore from Germany or from the, yeah.
Yeah, the Dutch settlement. So from the Netherlands.
So they're bringing all these like stories and legends here, but then again, they're in a space where they're not near the city. You have like a lot of folk farmers that are doing their thing, and they don't have phones to distract them. So there's stories,
Right.
but also go to the woods at night and tell me you're not a little creeped out.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
especially if all you have is a torch or a candle.
yeah,
You don't have a flashlight.
there's something eerie about it, and definitely when you're just like, this is such a wild land. Like you don't have any control over it.
So who are our main characters in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow?
So obviously we've got Ichabod Crane, who is a teacher.
Exactly.
But
I don't know if he was coming to replace a teacher that had been there. That sounds like it might have been the case.
Yeah. It seems like he's just one of the came to the rural area to teach. Not a very like good job. It said that he barely made enough to eat, but he did survive so much on the charity of the families he stayed with. He didn't have his own house.
Right. Ichabod Crane is a weird guy in general. He was supposed to be like super lanky and
Has a long
nose and his feet were like shovels.
whatever that means.
I don't know. It means that they're like disproportionately large to his body, like clown shoes for feet.
Yeah.
But I think about the adaptation that Disney did that's in I think it's like The Legend of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Oh, yeah.
It's split into two. It's weird. Like the first half of it is some Mr. Toad thing.
Yeah.
And then the second half is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And the adaptation was allegedly like pretty close to Washington Irving's release of the Legends of Sleepy Hollow.
I remember that from when I was little. The cartoon, I remember.
So apparently, yeah, and he had the big nose, and he was super skinny. You could almost see through him.
Yeah, and but then he also has, while he's in this little folk land, he has a love interest.
Yes, from the moment that he saw her, he was very interested in Katrina von Tassel, and she's probably just like the only attractive girl in a small town sort of situation.
Yeah, it's like when you're in high school and there's only like you only have so many people.
Yeah.
You're in youth.
When you go
like,
through a K through 12 group, it makes the one girl start looking a lot better because she's the only one there. That's funny.
Well, and I love how much the story didn't like make him very endearing. He's like,
No, Ichabod's not the hero of the story. He's not even a likable character.
no, whenever you realize he's like, he liked her even more when he realized who her dad was,
Right.
how much money was there. And my God, Ichabod loved food.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, the poetry about food in the book was amazing. Like,
What did it say about food?
just he would do these alliterations of how he would prepare ham and cheese. I literally called the rooster Chanticleer, which comes from old medieval text.
Wow.
There was a lot of references to like the medieval world, but then also these like poetry about food that just was entertaining, and also it made me hungry.
I bet it did. He was like a complex character because when you think about Sleepy Hollow at the beginning, you're like, well, you want him to be the character that you root for, I guess.
You want him to be the hero.
But I don't think that he's the hero because some of the traits that I wrote down for him is that he's superstitious and he's cowardly. Is that he was afraid of everything because he would believe all the stories.
He was super interested in like witchcraft. He would Psalms, which is interesting. He loved the Psalms from the Bible and witchcraft books.
That's an odd combination.
Right?
Or maybe it's not. I don't know.
A kid that was like, I'm going to read the Psalms all day. Or someone who's like, I'm praying the Psalms, but I'm also going to do witchcraft. You're like, all right, Ichabod.
I mean, they might have the Bible if it's they want to like burn it or set it on fire or something like that.
But no, he was like this weird, like obsessed about like witchcraft, but he was a singer.
Well, maybe he was a good singer.
Yeah, he thought he was a good singer.
He thought that he was a good singer. He was conceited about his intellect and about his ability to sing. I think he was just like going around being like, all right, you want to come to singing lessons? I got these other guys coming to singing lessons. Let's have some groups. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to integrate myself in the Von Tassel house by offering to give Katrina Von Tassel singing lessons.
So
that was his in, I think.
Yeah, that was his in. Von Tassel and Crane are actually family names from that Sleepy Hollow area.
Really?
Yeah, they're actually names of families.
That's pretty cool.
So I think that is really cool that he's the Washington Irving's taking like real history, real legends, real stories that are and he's building a story around it. So I have no doubt that the very story that we hear about the Headless Horseman is actually
based on
what he
at least what they had heard, or what had been passed down. But Ichabod
character.
Yeah, Ichabod's not the only one that's interested in Katrina Von Tassel.
No,
he has some competition from a local boy, one of the Sleepy Hollow boys, as they are affectionately known as, and his name is Brom Bones.
Brom Bones.
That's actually his nickname. I think it's like Braun Van Gant or something like that, or whatever, something more Dutchified.
But we like Brom Bones.
Yeah, he's a native son, and he's kind of like a little prankster.
You notice that I only saw one really thing that was kind of bad about him. I guess he's a little bit of a trickster, so I guess. But the other one is it literally was like he's sometimes arrogant. But actually, most time people look up to him. He's the decision maker for a lot of people.
Most of the time, those people that you look up to are a little bit arrogant.
Yeah, exactly. They have to be to make those decisions.
Yeah, not always, but sometimes that is the case. But how could he not be arrogant though? He was like the star quarterback of the high school football team type of personality, and he was good at riding horses. I think
great at riding horses.
That's what he was known for, and he had his group of guys, the Sleepy Hollow Boys.
I love that they're called the Sleepy Hollow Boys.
Yeah, me too.
Like, why is it like, I want to be part of the Sleepy Hollow Boys. So good. Yeah, and the whole he was obviously in the beginning of the story, he had to sway. she liked him a lot more. She liked Bronze Bones more.
I think that she kind of like led on Ichabod to try to make Bronze Bones like more jealous or more committed or like more serious about the relationship.
Which definitely, like, I loved how it explained her.
How did it explain her?
And I wish I could remember the exact phrasing, but essentially, the writer, the historian that wrote this,
Is the Rickenbacker guy or
the
okay?
guy said that there are two types of girls. That there's the one who is hard to get. I'm paraphrasing. There's the one that's hard to get, but once you do, is going to be committed to you lifelong. And then there's the one who can be tempted by any number of things, any number of ways.
Yes.
And the challenge with her is to keep her interested. And he's like, the true hero is the one who can keep her interested.
That's true.
And he explains her as this girl. So maybe she was kind of a flirt. She was like, ooh, this guy.
Played one against the other. Yeah.
And I could see her doing that, but.
So she's not a good person either, though. Like,
yeah, it's not great. Well, she's like, girls just want to have fun. Like
she's
really
gonna go with
offer.
Yeah, she's gonna go with whoever is gonna offer her the best experience, like at the moment.
Yeah, who's gonna give? Which, gosh, that would be insane.
It's hard to turn down Bronze Bones though. When
fun horse rider, trickster, kind of wild. Yeah, I could see him.
You got the nerd with the books and the big nose and the big feet.
Yeah. I didn't have a chance. But before he even got to the party, he was like daydreaming about gaining the whole household. Like she gave him no notion that she was going to win.
No, rarely do you ever see a protagonist as greedy and as gluttonous as Ichabod is.
So greedy, so gluttonous. He
thinks with his stomach.
He's not daydreaming about love with her. He's daydreaming about the food he'll eat.
And he wants to be the lord of the manor, just like her father is now.
And to tell down other teachers, to be like, oh, you stupid idiot. Like, it's just crazy. That the way he is so, like, icky.
So we've mentioned, yes, I agree. So we've mentioned that there's the party, and we've mentioned that Ichabod comes to town and becomes a teacher. Is there anything that happens in between these instances? Because the story is really short, actually.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of action going on in the story.
For as long, the story's not long, but for as long as the short story is, there's really only two scenes.
There's the party scene, and then there's the climax.
The climax.
Yes.
Which
we can get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But the party scene is really interesting, though, because that's where Bronze Bones notices that Ichabod is just lapping up these ghost stories that the other men are telling.
All these guys are around the fire.
And they're smoking their pipes.
Drinking.
Yes.
I love that scene. It made me want to like put my phone away and just sit with a whole bunch of old guys and hear ghost stories.
Well, you should come to my work and you can sit with old guys all the time if you want to.
Do you think they tell good ghost stories?
They are living ghosts. But
they are living ghosts.
No, some of them might listen to this, so shout out if you're listening and you come to my work. But how's your pumpkin beer going, Jesse?
I'm nearly done.
I'm nearly done too. I like the pumpkin a lot. I'm kind of sad that there's not more of these.
Yeah, I should have just bought all this and just had pumpkin beers all evening. I'm nearly done.
When you finish that one, we can get into the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bronze Bones notices that Ichabod really likes the stories that are being told. There's a specific one that's about, it's called like the White Woman, I think, or about this lady who froze to death in this rock formation that looks like a raven, and it's called Raven Rock. And then like when you pass by there, allegedly you could hear her like wailing as she dies.
Yeah. He gets kind of like, this is his weird obsession with witchcraft that's happening. His obsession with folklore. And I really do wonder if it was more scientific or if he was obsessed with, it seems like it was very spiritual for him. But I can't really tell because Ichabod's kind of a vague character in the book. Right?
And there's not, it's a short story. So there's not that extrapolation of like his thought process.
Yeah, that's not telling us what he's thinking. It's telling us what's happening.
We'll get into other adaptations of
because I think when
Sleepy
we
Hollow.
think of adaptations are just in fact even this is an adaptation of an earlier legend. So the adaptations are what carry a legend to the next generation. So they're absolutely important.
Yeah, definitely. This one kind of has like the adaptation is part of a theme of Sleepy Hollow in general, because you're hearing it from the perspective of someone who is recounting it orally.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of it, that the narrator or whatever who's recounting what he heard says something about he doesn't even believe half of it.
Yeah, the narrator's like, I don't even know if I believe half of this. But he's still. I love the way the story is told through like this kind of historian, telling the story as it came to him.
It's sort of a commentary on how those oral traditions and like legends and stories are passed on in general, because they get adapted and they change, and they could be as wild as the storyteller wants them to be and not even contain a grain of truth, or they could be very close to the source material and like
they're not peer reviewed, are
right? No, I no, exactly.
So
Brom Bones tells the story that Jesse told me at the beginning about the Hessian soldier with the cannonball and becoming the headless horseman that rises from the grave,
from the grave at night,
seeks out his head,
and all the old ladies are really replicating the story. They're like, "Oh, did you hear the Hessian soldier was out there last night? Did you hear the horse? Did you hear like it's noise,
feeding into the
like,
atmosphere,
and you can't help it. Like but after reading, I'm like, oh man, I was walking in the woods. And I was like,
I could
see there being a Hessian horseman out here. I'm not walking here at night.
Right, especially if there's not movies or like whatever for you to like go entertain yourself with.
Yeah, you can't scroll and be like, I forgot.
You can't Google, is Sleepy Hollow Headless Horseman real? And then get some Reddit thread of these people who may or may not be telling the truth at all.
But yeah, Bronze Bones knows this.
Bronze Bones, I like that. That's his new name.
Oh.
All right. Bronze Bones tells him the story, and it cuts. The scene cuts, I think, pretty much like after that to
the end of the party.
Yeah, to the end of the party. Ichabod stayed around. He was one of those lingerers, I think, that tried to overstay his welcome to try to get Katrina alone at the end of the party.
Yeah, which is either creepy.
You have to know that you're going to be successful if you're going to try to do that sort of thing.
If you're not successful, it's just creepy.
Yeah, you have to know that that's what they want you to do.
Isn't that weird that the thing that like if he did it and she wanted it, it wouldn't be creepy.
Right. There would be no book.
But if he but it's creepy because she didn't want it.
Right, exactly.
He couldn't read the room.
No, he couldn't read the room or how he was being used to
he left pissed. He was pissed.
Yeah, he was pissed, and he's riding home alone.
He was pouty as heck too. He was just like slamming the door of his carriage and blah, 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 blah. It's so pouty.
It's part of his like egotistical nature.
He thinks he's the best.
Yes, he thinks he's the best like singer. He thinks that he's the best like the intellectual. Like apparently he would go to these people's houses and
he thought he was smarter than all of them.
Yes, and impress them with his learnedness that comes from out of state somewhere. All right, what are you pulling out of the magic
for this
pumpkin?
Next beer, I have an Oktoberfest. Well, I figured we have to drink an Oktoberfest
because it's October. What does Oktoberfest mean? Just means a beer that's brewed in October, or
yeah. Oh,
is it like a lager or something like that, or is like the kind of fest? I mean, the kind of beer Oktoberfest.
It's like a kind of.
I'm just gonna look at the can.
Yeah. It doesn't give you much. It's like, hey, you want to know some secrets? Too bad.
Well, they spelled beer with an I, so
yeah. So they spelled it the German way. It definitely is like because it's really giving some sense of the German Oktoberfest. And of course, because this is part of like that heritage of October, and I was like, well, we gotta do it. And this one's a local one for those who live
the Cahaba Brewing Company,
which is next to Cahaba River, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a river flows. That's what their whole quote is.
I've inner tubed down the Cahaba River.
Was it cool?
A few times?
Is it pretty?
Yeah, it's really pretty. It's cool.
I love that they have a brewery and that they had an Oktoberfest. I wanted to support a local company for the Oktoberfest. So here we are.
Supporting local companies.
So this is our second beer for the Headless Horseman or the Hessian Horseman. And it has no connection except for that it's October. That's the only connection. This one's a lot darker than our last one.
It's okay. It doesn't necessarily need a connection.
Yeah. Well, the connection is welcome to October, right?
Exactly.
All right.
Or welcome to Halloween.
Yeah, welcome to Halloween.
Welcome to Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow and spooky season.
As this comes out like on Halloween Day, so we're kind of like,
Yeah, like we're like right in.
we should have recorded this in September. It just had the pumpkins and everything. It just like pretended like
Yeah,
it was
just pretending
Halloween.
we were there.
What do we think about this one?
So initially it tasted like nothing, but then it tasted really good. But after the pumpkin beer, it's like it had like the pumpkin beer had so much flavor. And
This one doesn't have a lot.
This one more toned down. I do like it. Like I think it's very nice, malty, good flavor. But after the pumpkin beer, that was so
I was knocked off my feet by the pumpkin beer.
yeah, me too. And this one it's good. It's like I would drink this as a very easily.
Okay. I like that.
Let me drink on it a little bit more, and
We'll
tell
let you know more
Yeah.
of our thoughts as we go through this
as we're going
class.
through this.
Mhm.
So
He's left the party. He's
left the
pissed.
party
He got
all
turned
pissed.
down. hmm
God, he was so pissed.
He shot his shot
He shot his shot, and that shot,
and he
no.
airballed. He just missed the backboard. Everything.
Yeah, no, she was.
He's hitting old ladies in the stands with his shot. It was off the mark.
She was not having it.
No.
But it doesn't tell you how she rejected him.
No, it doesn't. It just like leaves that up to the imagination.
Oh man, I wonder if she slapped him.
I don't know.
I don't know, or she just played with. Oh God, I don't know. Anyway, so he's like, I'm gonna ride home, angry on his borrowed horse.
Oh, I love his borrowed horse.
Yeah, that
so
horse is. God, it's so cool.
His borrowed horse, his name is Gunpowder, and there's a quote about the horse that really describes its temperament. And the quote is that Gunpowder had outlived everything but his viciousness. So he was a broken down plow horse, and he was not very obedient.
No, not very obedient.
No, and not in the prime of his life.
No, he was old and he saw war.
Yeah.
He was in the war, like he was in wars. God.
And Ichabod, I don't even think Ichabod asked to borrow the horse. He just like commandeered him for the evening for this.
Am I correct that he was also explained with the epithet the horse was metal and mayhem?
Mm-hmm.
God, that was such a good line.
Metal and mayhem.
Oof.
But these were characteristics that he had earned during his time in battle,
Yeah.
not ones that he was necessarily displaying before he kicks the bucket, which it makes it sound like
Yeah.
he is. Because when in the Disney adaptation, he's like all skinny and you can see his ribs and like he's not doing well.
He has like demon eyes too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, did you in the book there was like this part where it's like talking about his eyes and like opening the gates of hell. And you're like, why is this horse so vicious?
I don't know.
Because it doesn't feel that vicious whenever he's running.
Right.
Well, anyways. So they get on a road and Ichabod's pissed and he's starting to as you do when it's nighttime in the forest, you start overthinking things.
Mm-hmm.
Every little sound becomes something.
Every shadow becomes something.
Ooh, and he's coming up on a very particular tree. It's called a tulip tree, which is not a tulip at all, but it has like these pretty flowers on it. But it's big and gnarled tree. It's bigger than all the other trees.
Okay.
And he's starting to get these like images of like, ooh. Like
He's remembering what
remembering the
stories that he'd heard.
He's probably had a few drinks and he's also rejected and like why live?
Mm-hmm.
He's going through all of it.
I don't see how he even feels the alcohol with all that he is eating at the party.
God so much.
I'm like, dude, you're eating entire turkeys over there.
Oh my God, yeah. He and his food consumption.
I'm surprised that Gunpowder can even carry him on the way home.
Uh,
That's why Gunpowder's
Imagine
mad.
really skinny with a big pot belly.
Yes.
Well, anyways, he's starting to freak out. Like getting his like, he's in his like little black coat that's so long that's going over the horse.
Yeah.
It's like he's seeing shadows.
The wind's whistling through the trees. The full moon's going, and it's like casting shadows on the ground.
You're positive something bad is happening.
Mm-hmm. The tree branches are like rubbing together and making eerie noises, creaks, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, the way that the writer Irving like explains this, he even puts you in such a scene where you're just like, I'm creeped out.
Yeah. This is where it really hits home, is during this part right here, I feel like.
And what does he see but on the road? But
The horseman.
He sees a guy on a horse, large, but he only sees a silhouette. He's huge,
Right.
though. And he starts.
He's coming towards him.
He's coming towards him. and he starts turning the other way, but his horse isn't listening.
Because he's stubborn. He's gunpowder.
Yeah, he's gunpowder. He's doing what he wants.
Yeah.
And so he starts trying to trot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when he starts trotting, the horseman follows him the same.
Same speed. Yeah.
When he slows down, he slows down.
It's like, oh, he's matching my speed. So he's not going to pass me. He's not like a car on the road that, once you slow down, you let them pass, get in the other lane. It's,
Yeah.
You know, if they're like matching your speed, that they're following you intentionally.
Oh, yeah. And he's following him.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts, let's get this horse going. Kicking it.
Give it a kick.
Yeah.
Give it a whip.
Yeah, jeez. And
Another reason to not like Ichabod is because he's mistreating Gunpowder. I feel like
Gunpowder.
he's like kicking him in the ribs.
the
It's like,
demon horse.
yeah. I mean, Gunpowder might deserve it because he might be a vicious horse, but he was made vicious by the people that had owned
He
him
made
at
vicious
some
by
point.
war.
Yeah.
It's like a veteran.
That's funny. And he
You take care of them.
Exactly.
We can't just like do this.
he looks like he was taken care of by the VA.
So he starts trotting this character, this horseman starts following him at the same speed.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks back and he realizes he's headless.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So it's not just a big guy. It's a
Not
big
just
guy,
Big guy
with
without-
no head.
Oh, and
So-
his mind started running. And what did
He
see?
books it then.
Dangling on the side?
His head.
His head. Dangling
Oh my
on
gosh.
by his thighs. And you're just like, he starts running. He's like, and he has this idea. If I get to this bridge,
Mm-hmm. Because he's heard this is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
story. This is the
get to this
church bridge.
Yeah, the church bridge, you'll be safe.
Because the spirit cannot cross the water is one of the common
yeah.
things amongst spirit encounters is that for some reason, like flowing water disrupts their energy
Oh,
and they can't cross it.
I know
So
that.
it's part of the built-in folklore into this story is that if he crosses the bridge, then the spirit loses its power, won't be able to pursue him. Because this is its area is on this one side, and the water, the flowing water specifically, creates a division in the energy.
I didn't know that.
You'll find that in like a lot of stories with fairy type things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of held to a different space where they can't go past.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he has this idea that he's going to get there, so he's running, and his horse, the Gunpowder, is like, nope, it goes a different way towards the Sleepy Hollow area. Like it's just goes down into that, and he's like, they're running so quick that his saddle literally falls off.
Yes, I saw that.
And it gets trotted over behind him. He hears the horse running over
So
his trot.
he's just holding on to the Gunpowder's neck at this
Yeah.
point.
It-
He's holding on for dear life.
Have you ever rode a horse like barebacked?
No, most definitely not.
Oh, okay. So I have a dear friend who was like, I'm going to learn to ride a horse. So I have to learn to ride a horse. But you're going to do it bareback. This was maybe 4 years ago.
I imagine it's a lot more difficult.
I never rode it with a saddle, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And I did start riding. I really enjoyed it. So, but this horse, Rebel, who I do dearly like this horse. But one day, in a very rude fashion, we're trotting. And I'm learning, we're running. And I'm getting pretty good at it. Well, I'm not sure I'm good.
You feel like you're getting the hang
I
of it.
feel like I'm getting the hang
Yeah.
of it. Well, we get really trotting, but then it goes, doo, 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 and I fly off. And roll
Oh,
in the
really?
long grass.
You fell off the horse.
Yeah, and I just rolled
Oh,
off
man.
into the long grass, and I like come up and I like look at him, and he just looks at me, and then he darts back to the barn
Wow.
without me. I have to like walk a mile and a half just to.
Well, at least he has like a returning program
Yeah,
into
like
him. He's like,
home-
oh,
pony
okay.
home.
Yep.
He was like, "Well, sucks to suck.
Lost my
Gone."
rider. I return to my docking bay.
Yeah, so he left me, but
I'm surprised you didn't get hurt though, dude. Like that sounds incredibly violent, falling off of
it
a
was
horse.
really long grass. Like I'm talking like
Okay.
4 or 5 feet long, so it really
Just, like,
worked out
cushioned
where-
your
yeah, it
fall.
just cushioned me.
That's lucky.
Yeah, it could have been really bad.
hmm
I've heard some.
You could have got King Henry VIII or something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
but I just got tumbled and had a good story from it.
That is a good story.
So, but yeah, so here he is. He's on his horse, and his horse is starting to trot, and he flies off in a very
Ichabod flies off.
Ichabod flies
Wow.
in a very similar fashion. Probably not with as much grace as me, of course.
Yes, he doesn't fall into the tall grass.
No, not into the tall grass, but by the riverbed.
So it's probably
No, he doesn't just fall off. Sorry. Stepping back. He doesn't fall off. The headless horseman starts swinging his head and whips his head at him, and it hits him, and then he falls off.
Is it like holding it by the hair, or like
guess.
how's
He's just
this
hitting it.
working?
I don't know how he's doing it. Is it like the orc, like, or is it
Like
just
a slingshot sort of thing? Yeah,
yeah. I don't know if he's punting it
I don't know.
or if he's like, but he throws
It's up
it
to
at
the
him,
imagination here.
and it hits him, and it's just like explodes.
It
on him.
explodes,
And he falls off, tumbles into like the river.
and then it cuts.
It cuts.
This is it.
Like that's our story of Ichabod.
I thought that he made it to the bridge, though. Does he not make it to the bridge?
It's like right next to the bridge.
Okay. And then that's where he falls off the horse, gets hit by the head.
Yeah, and then
And-
they find
The next day,
the next day.
Ichabod doesn't show up for breakfast, of course, because that's his number one priority.
Yeah, we know he would show up for breakfast.
Yes. Oh, man. Something must be wrong if Ichabod's not at breakfast because he's.
He loves breakfast.
Yes, exactly.
He loves pancakes and waffles and bacon and
Sausage and, yeah. All right.
like he
so,
would do it with alliterations. It'd be wonderful waffles and delicious pancakes and beautiful bacon.
we all love a good description of food, though.
Yeah,
Food is universal.
everyone eats it.
Mm-hmm.
You ever meet someone who didn't like food?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like food is a chore. You know, it's like, oh man, I got to eat something because I feel terrible, but I don't want to take the time to eat something.
I like literally never feel that way. I'm always like,
That's good. I'm jealous of you.
I understood Ichabod in a lot of ways. I was like, man, if I didn't do taekwondo, I'd be like 10 times thicker.
That's funny.
So yeah,
They look for him when he doesn't show up for breakfast, and what do they
he doesn't
find?
show up for work.
Oh yeah, the school children were just like wandering around, like, oh, what's going on? Where's our teacher today?
What's our teacher? We're gonna. And, well, they and the horse doesn't show up either.
Oh no, they
no,
found
the
the
horse
horse.
shows up. The horse
The
shows
horse
up.
did what your horse did.
Went
and
home-
it went
home.
home. Yes, exactly. So they found the horse in his pasture or whatever,
No saddle though.
but no saddle. They did find the saddle along the path to
Deep printed horse hoof.
look like it had got trampled.
Mm-hmm.
And they found Ichabod's hat.
And a smashed pumpkin,
Yes,
which is why we had pumpkin today.
exactly. And why you see all the
Pumpkins
decorations.
Yeah. Now, what that does leave us in this.
It's an open-ended sort of ending.
Yeah. In some ways, the story leads us to two different conclusions.
Okay. What are those two conclusions?
I think the one that follows realism, or the kind of realistic, scientific, like thinking one, would be, like Ron Bones was like, I'm
pretending to be because he's the one that's told him the story.
Yeah.
He planted that in his mind, and then he could have had this idea in his head the whole night, or like from before the night even started. And then he did this whole grand gesture of the
because he's a prankster.
right. He's the
anyway.
prankster of the Headless Horseman to scare Ichabod away from Katrina. So he's effectively eliminating the competition in a relatively non-violent manner.
Yeah, relative. Well, he did throw potentially a pumpkin at him.
Right.
But there is then, with that, there is also some evidence that there was in the story someone who said, it literally is like someone said that they knew Ichabod Crane was a lawyer now, somewhere in a city far away, New York City. or
Yes,
something.
so that he had become a lawyer, a politician, and a judge on the 10-pound council or something like that. 10-pound court. That's what it was.
Let's admit that's a pretty successful three
You would-
jobs.
you would
You'd
think.
that everyone would know who he is. So the other option is much more sinister.
And much more fanciful.
Yeah, which of course is that
He got killed by the Headless Horseman and his body taken away.
literally I've read it that he was spirited away. We talked about that like
yes.
Sir Orfeo.
Brings us back to the Spirited Away.
Because this creature, the Headless Horseman, is a lot like these Fae.
I read.
What's he doing? Hunting people, bringing them into his world.
Yep.
So you have this, again, this repetitive state that we're finding that he was spirited away, taken from this world.
Okay, so the Headless Horseman was like the dominant spirit in the region of Sleepy Hollow, and this is where he reenacted his vengeance from this spot geographically.
Geographically, he kept on taking out vengeance on.
Because it's like we talked about in the Sir Orfeo episode, it's the spot where like the natural butts up against the supernatural, or like the nature, the natural, the wild, and civilized. Yes.
Rubbing up against each other. And this is one of those like folk areas, so it's still very rural. It's dependent on the land. It's like the grafted tree.
Yes, it could have had to do with the bridge too, because like the bridge represents the crossing point from the wild into the civilized as well.
Oh, I see.
So,
which is interesting. Do you know the Romans used to view bridges as sacred?
I could see that.
Yeah.
Bridges have lots of importance throughout history.
Yeah.
You can find a ton of things about different bridges around the world that have super significance like that. Well, for some reason, my brain goes to the bridge that the dogs commit suicide off of in Scotland. But that's not. Yeah. There's some bridge.
Wild.
There's some bridge in Scotland where like dogs go up and they like jump off of it.
Why? Why would they do that?
I'm not sure why. You can look it up, but it might have something to do with an optical illusion that like happens to the dogs, or there might be like, I don't know, they become possessed by the spirit of another dog that killed themselves at that bridge, or that fell off that bridge one time or something. But bridges are always significant because they are your like choke points for things. They're like where everything has to funnel through that or nothing happens.
Or nothing.
And then you think about like the Amazon and like the wilderness where you have the plank bridges and like people try to like get across those and the dangers that they pose.
It's true. It's true. So halfway through the spear, which was maybe faster than I meant to go.
No, that's good. I'm rambling, so like,
how you feeling about this one?
I think that I like this one.
More,
I don't think that I like it more than the other one though.
The Pumpkin was
Pumpkin King was a pleasant surprise,
unexpected.
Sort of like the Headless Horseman.
Yeah, unexpected. No one expects the Headless Horseman.
No, most definitely. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
So, yeah, and thinking about the Headless Horseman, of course, this is really what he's like considered the first of American folklore, or first of
American ghost stories, which I find hard. Like that's an interesting claim to begin with.
Yeah, well, and maybe it's only because it's very territorial, and maybe it's because it's the first one written. Like, we probably had lots of ghost stories before that.
Right, exactly. It's the culmination of something that's put to paper.
And
there's no way it's the first ghost story that's happened in America.
And after doing El Dorado, I'm sure there's some pretty crazy Spanish ghost stories about that area.
Most definitely. It's got to be something to do with English language.
Yeah.
Not first in America.
But that's definitely one of the arguments, is it's the first American, United States of America. Allegedly, Washington Irving did meet Washington.
George Washington.
George Washington.
Oh, really? That might be a George Washington episode in the future.
Yeah, I cannot wait to do the George Washington episode. We're going to save that one for a patriotic day, though.
Oh, we could do that one like 4th of July or something like that.
Something like that. So, but again, this story isn't central to America. This doesn't start off in America. It has some history, and you studied some of this history, didn't you?
I have a few different accounts because, like we said, Washington Irving drew on the folklore that he had heard while he was traveling in the Americas. And where does that folklore come from? From the countries of those people. Yeah, exactly. And then it gets blended with the local traditions as well and becomes its own thing. But you would think that the Headless Horseman would be like a unique ghost or like a unique specter of Sleepy Hollow in particular. But it turns out that there are actually other Headless Horsemen from legends around the world.
Isn't that just annoying?
Of course it is.
All the horsemen.
I know.
All the Headless Horsemen.
We can't even have a unique ghost story in America, but
we have unique sized hot dogs. They're about a foot long compared to everyone else.
and we are typically stealing good ideas from other places.
Yeah, well,
just like
have to get it from somewhere.
Yes,
we're great at adaptation.
Can you guess where one of the Headless Horseman stories comes from?
Oh, the country we always go back to.
Yes, the running Legends and Libations joke that comes up every episode almost. It is
Ireland.
Ireland.
Oh my.
Yes, there was a
Always
headless.
with Ireland.
100%. There was a headless horseman legend in Ireland. Has a really cool name. It's called the Doulahan.
The Doulahan sounds so. Ooh, that sounds
Yes.
creepy. The Doulahan.
It sounds like one of like the four horsemen of the apocalypse sort of thing. One of them is the Doulahan, and it actually was like the Celtic equivalent of death. So it was like a harbinger of death a lot of the time. If you saw the Doulahan, there was a good chance that if it didn't kill you, that you were gonna die. Mm-hmm. And there were some really grotesque and creepy descriptions of how the Doulahan would conduct his business.
Yeah, I read a few things. So, like, one of the things is first, his whips
Yes.
were made of spinal cords. So was his. If he had a carriage, the hitch on his carriage also was made of spinal cords.
Who even thinks of something like that?
The Celts.
What is the practicality of how many spinal cords make up a whip?
Yeah, like it's only gonna be 6 feet long, maybe. Like, you don't get much bigger than that.
Yeah, but you've got to have a couple of spinal cords to get a whip together, though. Probably.
But
He would use the head as a lantern. He was not looking for his head. His head, he would like illuminate it.
He would use his head. He would either.
It was kind of like a jack-o'-lantern, I think.
Yeah, or he would lift it up so he could look far away. Now
Well, that's a good idea. You gotta get a different perspective.
different
You just like
perspective.
take your
Just lift
head
it
and just
up
like
and-
lift
yeah.
it up a little bit.
But listen to this description of the head I got. This is from old writing. I say it's old. I don't actually know how old it is. I forget.
Didn't come out in the last few
Such
years.
a head no mortal ever saw before. It looked like a large cream cheese hung around a black pudding. No speck of color. It lived in the shy paleness of the depressed features. The skin lay stretched over the unearthly surface, almost like a parchment head over a drum. Two fiery eyes in its circumference, with a strange and irregular motion, flashing like meteors.
Wow,
It's gross.
that's ominous.
And
too.
yeah. Oh, that's a quote from old Celtic writing. That's it's like so ew,
Yeah,
rotten.
it's like the corpse. It's like a corpse is chasing
yeah,
you, sort of thing. Yeah,
exactly.
it really captivates. Like that, it's rising from the grave. It's not a like a specter. Even if it's a solid figure, like we talked about, it's not a perfect, like, you know how you separate like a ghost from a corpse, sort of thing. Like it's not a zombie and it's not a mummy.
No.
it's a ghost. It's its own thing. But like in this sort of sense, before photography, that it takes on the characteristics of the corpse, of the decay,
Yeah, of the decaying
the
corpse,
decrepitness of the body, which adds a whole nother element to like the eeriness of it, I think.
Of course, it also had the black horse and everything like that.
Sometimes it was the carriage
Yeah,
that
the
had
carriage.
6 horses that carried it. And in some instances, the horses were also headless,
Yeah. Weird,
which would
right?
be very strange to see because I don't know how they would know where they were going.
Well, then you also had like this space where they just roam around the countryside. And if you saw it, you were probably likely to die.
Like looking for a victim.
Yeah. The Dollahan. Gosh, that one's cool.
Doulahan is really cool. Yeah, that one was the Celtic version.
Apparently, this did come from the Brothers Grimm, like this story.
Is this where they had the wild huntsman?
Yeah, the Wild Huntsman. Yeah, the Wild Huntsman. You know more about that?
No, I was hoping that you did.
Yeah. A little bit about it. So this is closer to the German folklore. And apparently the head of the Wild Huntsman was Odin, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just found that out not that long ago.
We're combining more mythos together.
Yeah. I know it's bringing a lot together. The Wild Huntsman does come from this space of the Rhine, like Rhineland, the Rhine River, right? So the Headless Horseman stories come from that area mostly originally. This is again where the horsemen are counted more as reverence. And that's these dead corpse that goes and touches and brings people to death.
Oh, wow.
So they do act a little bit like those fey creatures that were, again, it's repeating the same concept, but in a different folklore.
And it's kind of in the same geographical region.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
close. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the strangest or the most different interpretation is actually the English one.
Okay. What's that one called?
Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which we kind of like had the book up here the other day. But
Yes.
the Green Knight, the he gets his head chopped
I
off.
had some people asking me while we had the book that said Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. When we were doing an episode called
Yeah.
Sir Orfeo, and I had to convince them that indeed the translation of Sir Orfeo is in there, but it does not say so on the cover.
Isn't it weird that it doesn't say it on the cover?
It's ridiculous that it doesn't say so on the cover. It does on the Amazon link, though.
Yeah, on the
Yes.
Amazon link it does. But I know.
Tell us about Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
So Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is actually a Christmas story, and maybe we'll do it for one Christmas.
Okay.
But
We should go ahead and start thinking of our Christmas episodes so we can record it like next week.
next week so that you guys are ready, get it on time because you guys are literally going to get this on.
We're gonna tree's gonna go over that right there.
right
Here.
So Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Sir Gawain takes up the challenge to go ahead and take. So this Green Knight walks into their court.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nature walks into civilization, right?
And he's trying to sell some canned food. He's like the green giant. It's gonna be big.
He's selling like, hey, you want some green beans?
Yes.
It's gonna be big in the future. Capitalism is gonna love this.
I'm gonna hold on. Just random sidebar, real quick. Is that okay? We think of like canned food as like the in a pinch sort of thing that you wouldn't want to eat at all. I was reading a book about the guy who invented diesel fuel. I think I was telling you a little bit about him before we started this podcast. But he took a train out to like America in the West, and he was German or something like that. But he was like, these places were all living in the future is that they were eating canned food all the time, and like all their food was coming from cans. And like he was like super in awe of the fact that their food was all canned, and they could have like canned tuna and like canned stuff like that. But nowadays, like how it's completely flip flopped, and it's like, we do not want the canned food if we can avoid the canned food. But some good food comes in cans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, preserves well.
I just thought that was interesting. I actually thought about that today before that. That's probably why I'm bringing it up right now.
Speaking of the Celtic lands.
Oh, what have you got from the Celtic lands?
You know what?
Your kilt?
No kilts. No kilts
today.
But
We're going to move the tablecloth and you're going to reveal Jesse's kilt.
How often will we put? I brought some Guinness.
Nice.
I thought Guinness would be a good.
For the Doulahan.
Yeah, the Doulahan's here. And I feel like the Doulahan was a really creepy one.
Mm-hmm. It was the most creepy one, I think.
So I thought Guinness would finish us off really nicely.
And there's the harp.
Yeah, there's the harp from
Sir Orfeo.
So it was just a full around trip. Oh, God. Let's put this pumpkin back together.
When we do stories, like literature stories back to back, I feel like we can really compare and contrast and mostly compare.
Yeah.
The similarities that you get cross culture that are universal. No matter how many miles separate the cultures that tell these stories, that they still have.
See how stories are repeated.
Mm-hmm. Even down to like the minute details and stuff like that. Like the whisks away thing.
Yeah, the fact that Ichabod's spirited away, so is like Orpheo's wife, so is like that, so it's like that Japanese story, spirited away. It's just, it's weird. Right?
Mm-hmm. And like you said, like the person that touches his victims, and like they get spirited away.
Yeah,
and that's just kind of like one step removed from how like the Doulahan was like a harbinger of death as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even if he's not the one that's bringing about your death, like he's still signaling. Yeah, exactly. And I watched a video that was talking about the Doulahan specifically, and it was like, oh well, if you can think of the two main harbingers of death when it comes to fairies, you will think of, and I was like, oh, I know what I'm going to say. And then it was like Banshee and something else, like maybe Headless Horseman. I don't know. Yeah. But the one that I wanted to say, you know what it is?
No.
Okay, it's one that we might do in the future. It's that Mothman.
Mothman. Oh, I had a student go over Mothman. She was in love with Mothman.
Oh, I love Mothman too. Mothman is a great legend that I think that we should definitely do on a future episode because he is a harbinger of death as well.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This student, and I didn't know enough about it to really took it on, but her argument was that Mothman was her personal guardian angel.
Okay, well, that's a little bit far out there.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. But I was like, all right, right away.
No, but like
Mothman would be fun.
Yeah, Mothman. Like the quick thing is that Mothman was sighted right before this bridge collapsed in West Virginia.
Yeah.
In 40 something or whatever, and it killed like 200 people. Oh, but like no one saw like the Mothman attacking the bridge or anything like that. Yeah. It was just like sighted several times, like right before it happened. Yeah. So they think that that's the harbinger was warning of it. It's impending.
Too bad it didn't have like a sign. Don't go on the bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't go on the bridge. Yeah.
But we're just getting off track there. Yeah, so we're talking about different headless horsemen.
So the English one comes as a Christmas story where King Arthur's court. So this is medieval. We're looking at like 1300s. Is challenged by this Green Knight.
Challenged to do what? Eating contest?
No.
Bean eating contest?
Bean eating contest.
Guess how many jelly beans are in this jar?
It's essentially whatever, however, behead me and I'll behead you in a year and a day. Or cut me and I'll cut you in the same way, a year and a day away. And it's kind of a weird, vague, do you have to kill him? Do you not have to? Could you cut his thumb?
Yes. Is it just while I'm shaving?
Yeah. But Sir Gawain actually takes up the cause and he straight chops off the head of the knight.
There we go.
But the Green Knight then picks up his head, says, "All right, meet me at the Green Chapel in a year and a day." And
it's pretty hardcore.
And I'll let you receive the same. And then you follow Sir Gawain's adventure to the Green Knight's Chapel a year and a day later. It takes him a little while to get there. It's a wonderful story. We'll save it for a Christmas tale, maybe around Christmas time. But it's a weird headless horseman's tale.
It is.
Because he rides his horse off with his head in his hand. And that's
definitely a headless horseman. Yeah, it qualifies.
But apparently in like the early Grimm brothers editions of the Headless Horseman, he acted more as a warning, just kind of like Mothman in a way. Mm-hmm. He would essentially warn hunters. They would hear a horn blowing or something, and he would warn hunters not to go out on the day after. Like, don't go out tomorrow, otherwise you'll die.
Interesting.
Isn't that weird?
Yes. Yeah. So he was not necessarily a vindictive or like malicious type figure.
No. He becomes very malicious in this American edition.
Yeah. Right? I have another brief anecdote of a headless horseman that is not a malicious encounter. Was this woman who claimed that she encountered a headless horseman, and I think this comes from a Scandinavian country, so like Norway, Sweden, something like that. And she was stealing acorns from this wooded area where she wasn't supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And
when you're in the wooded area, you're not supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. And there's an old woman stealing acorns away from the squirrels.
Don't hang out there.
And the headless horseman told her that those who are not punished in this life for the sins that they commit end up being a headless wanderer for all eternity.
Interesting.
And that made her just like, it was like a cautionary tale to not steal acorns, I guess. I'm not really sure what the point was, but he wasn't there to kill her or anything like that. Like it was like a complete morality thing.
Yeah, complete morality tale.
So you have a lot of instances like that. There was another one where I'm not sure where this was from, but a guy named Charlie was riding his horse, and at the same time he was caught up with by a headless horseman, and they somehow had a conversation, and Charlie asked him if anyone had ever challenged him to a ride or like to like a race or something like that. And the headless horseman guy was so like moved by the fact that Charlie had not been scared away by his mere presence that he was like, "Oh no one has ever challenged me to a ride before or to a race." And then they had a brief race for a bit, and I think that Charlie lost because the Headless Horseman is like a paranormal specter sort of thing. But he didn't kill him or anything like that. No, they were pals, I guess.
They're like, actually, me and the Horseman, total pals.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a selfie that I took with him. He didn't smile when I said smile because his head wasn't there, but
yeah. Never mind. I was about to say like his throat opened up.
His esophagus was just like
gross. So this is Guinness. This is normal, relatively normal. How you feeling about it? Oh, this is extra stout. This is Guinness extra
it's
stout.
extra stout, whatever that means.
How do we feel about it
I
after
like
all the
it.
other beers we had?
I think it's good that we saved it to the end because since it's stout, it has that flavor that's not lost because we've already had a couple of beers. So
yeah, I feel like out of today, the pumpkin is just
it's running away. Mm-hmm.
Outshining.
It's outshining like this one Jack Leonard.
Would you give it a 9 or a 10? I would give it a 9 or a 10.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think of something that I would give a 10, so I would probably give it a 10 because I can't think of anything else I would give it a 10. Yeah.
9 or a 10. The Cahaba I would give like a 6 or 7. There.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Guinness is fine.
Yeah.
It's just fine.
5 or 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It's nothing crazy. Did you read any more about? I mean, there's obviously stories about Headless Horseman. I even read about a Japanese one, but I'm going to offer that up for another time.
Okay.
Because it's cool and I want to save it.
Okay. Well, speaking of cool stories about Headless Horseman, I've got a cool one that comes from an unexpected place.
Ooh, tell me.
This one actually comes from southern Texas.
So that's like around the corner.
Yeah, that's not a place that you would normally expect
Southern Texas.
Southern Texas has its own Headless Horseman story.
Are you serious?
That I did not know about before I looked into this. And it actually comes from around the same time because I think the Texas War of Independence. Was like going around the same time probably. And they had the remember the Texas Rangers, not the baseball team. And not
the Rangers, Texas
not the Chuck Norris. Was he a Texas Ranger or something like that? But
if he wasn't, he is.
Exactly.
The time of Chuck Norris
jokes that like all the 2000s, the naughties as they call it now, which is the dumbest name I've ever heard. Yes, I remember the time, but this is like apparently the Texas Rangers that patrolled this disputed area between the rivers of like the Rio Grande and this other river. That's name I can't remember, but like Texas recognized one of them as the border, which gave them more land, and Mexico recognized the other one as the border, which gave them more land. So the area where these two overlapped was like a lawless no man's land where cattle rustlers and bandits and like total mayhem.
Rustlers.
Yes.
Sorry,
I meant cattle rustlers.
No. Cattle wrestlers. You know it's cattle
wrestlers. Right after the guys that chase the greased pigs. Yes, at the rodeo. Because you want to see those guys chase those greased pigs.
Could you imagine a cattle wrestler?
They would lose. I think you need to grease the cattle too to even give them a fair chance. Okay, so you had the cattle wrestlers and the rustlers. Everything was happening. This was anything goes.
Anything goes.
And then the area between the rivers.
Pirates of the Caribbean, but not in the Caribbean, in a desert. Pirates of the desert.
In a very dusty desert.
Pirates of the Dust.
Yes.
Dusty pirates.
So you had these two guys that were Texas Rangers, and
Norris was called a Texas Ranger.
I think he was too, and I think that was like from a different sort of time because this was in the 1800s.
Yeah. Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. I never watched it. Anyways.
It's not set in the 1800s. I'm pretty sure. It's like a...
It was Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a vigilante cop on the edge sort of like sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
So these two guys were Texas Rangers and they were hunting down people in this lawless area. The Texas Rangers were like a U.S. government sanctioned group to protect this area.
Uh-huh.
And they were out looking for some bandits or whatever, and this notorious cattle rustler, yes, they were out after all the sand pirates. But see, while they were away from their ranches, this notorious cattle rustler named Vidal, he saw this as an opportunity to like hit a bunch of ranches like in succession because none of their guys were home or something like that. So like he went and like stole a ton of cattle from these ranches and was like making his way back across toward Mexico or wherever his hideout was.
Wrestling the cattle.
Yes.
Rude.
So these two guys, I don't have their names written down, but the Texas Rangers, they like tracked him and they caught up with him and they found his encampment. And when they found him, they wanted to send a message. They were particularly vicious themselves. So they wanted to send a message to any other would-be cattle thieves out there to like not mess with us because this is America.
You don't
mess with America and you don't take our cattle.
You take our cattle, we'll take your... Is that head?
I don't know. We'll take your head.
Yeah.
So I guess that means that you can guess what they did to this guy.
If we're talking about Headless Horseman, I feel like it's...
They chopped off his head and they bound his body to his own horse without its head. They strapped the body to the horse and they set the horse off into the no man's land desert to serve as a warning to other would-be cattle thieves to not mess with us because look at what we do.
That's like Achilles Trojan style.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought that was really hardcore.
when he took Hector and just let the horse drag his body.
Uh-huh.
God, that's dark.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine seeing that and being like, okay, well, we're not going to do any cattle rustling for a good long while around here. Yeah.
Here, I'm gonna go wrestle somewhere else.
Yeah, well.
We're gonna wrestle in Arizona.
And
so then, okay, but how does that become a headless horse?
So it turned out that eventually, like the horse wandered for so long with the body on it that the body started to decay, and eventually people thought that they should give him a burial, like way later on. So they took this decaying body off of this horse, and they buried it somewhere, and that
anywhere.
Yeah, I can't remember the details specifically, but it was allegedly the story that the body or the headless horseman would then like roam those parts, continuing his to look for vengeance for those that took his head before, which was the two guys.
Could you imagine Sleepy Hollow placed in a desert?
I think that would be a pretty cool TV show.
A really cool TV show.
Yeah, we got like a mini series about this. That
would be cool.
I think you could,
and just like you have like that kind of.
It's like that Breaking Bad sort of vibe when they go to the New Mexico sort of thing, but you have that they're out there in the desert, but you set it back in time, like Alamo times.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah, I think that would be really hardcore.
That would be pretty hardcore. That would be a fantastic piece.
Mm-hmm. Somebody look into that. I've also had some people who say that we should do a mini series about El Dorado, and the guys that search for El Dorado would make a good series too.
A whole series,
or like
we could do it,
a show or something like that. Yeah. I mean, not us, like a big budget people playing these roles.
Because I would definitely need more money than what we do now.
Oh yes, exactly.
my zero income now for the.
No, I don't want to play the characters in El Dorado. I just want to maybe write their dialogue or something like that. Yeah. So that was one of the best Headless Horseman stories that I read was the Texas one.
The Texas Ranger one. That sounds cool.
Mm-hmm. And another big thing that I researched while looking for this was the 1999 Tim Burton adaptation.
The modern adaptation, which is just so
of Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, how'd you like it?
I loved it. I'm a big fan of this is the second time that I saw it.
Yeah.
And you have you got Johnny Depp, obviously, but then you've also got
a much more attractive
yes.
Ichabod. Great, right? like he does not have the awkwardness.
No. Okay, so the only things that he took that they stayed true to the source material for Ichabod was with his reliance, on science and learning and stuff like that, which is kind of related to Ichabod. And he was kind of conceited about that. He saw them as having small town values and small town minds when it came to advanced science and stuff like that. Yes. And he was scared too. He was very much like a coward about stuff for a while in that.
But he wasn't super awkward.
No, he was definitely not.
No, he didn't contain.
And he was not obsessed with food.
No, which kind of wish they were.
Exactly.
Like, God, the food. So good sounding.
Mm-hmm. It'd be a hard time to like. You wouldn't have much time for a plot if you made the main character as obsessed with food as Ichabod Crane really
It'd mostly
seemed.
be about eating.
Mm-hmm.
Going to a buffet.
And Johnny Depp was not a school teacher. He was a police investigator from New York City. Yeah. He was there to like solve the murders that the Headless Horseman had been committing.
So it's a very different plot.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh, there's like witchcraft and
Yeah, rather than the kind of touch of witchcraft that it has.
and you have a bunch of tie-in characters from other stuff. You see Uncle Vernon from Harry Potter. You also see the bad Dumbledore from Harry Potter.
Speaking of Harry Potter, we need something to talk about.
Speaking of Headless Horseman, and
Speaking
Harry
of
Potter,
Headless Harry Potter, Headless Horseman and Harry Potter is perhaps J.K. Rowling.
yes,
Perhaps she was inspired whenever she created the Headless Hunt. There was a Headless Hunt in the movie,
book 2. Yes,
yeah, where nearly headless Nick was unable to attend because he wasn't actually headless.
right. He
but
got hit on the neck like
he was like
400 times, something like that.
But I'm
embarrassed for not knowing.
They had the headless hunt, but he wasn't allowed to go. It's kind of fun because it's like this kind of connection to the Headless Horseman as a legend and the Headless Hunt that we've read about, that where the Headless Horseman comes from.
It's one of those great Harry Potter tie-ins where they're drawing from
She's
real
drawing
mythological
from
stuff.
Mythological stuff, which is better for us.
And Nearly Headless Nick is played by one of my favorite comedic actors. It's John Cleese of Monty Python.
I didn't know
Pays
that.
Nearly Headless Nick in the movies. And as the time of us writing this, I think he is still alive.
On this day. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like 90 something though.
Yeah, he's feeling the age. Monty Python's so good.
Oh, most definitely.
Thinking of our next episode coming up and Harry Potter.
Oh, yes. Speaking of that.
My goodness. I think that there's a lot of misinformation about the Sorcerer's Stone.
The Sorcerer's Stone, also known as the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah, the alleged Philosopher's Stone.
Which they really don't get into in Harry Potter because of the whole like Voldemort's going to come back sort of thing.
Yeah, but there's a lot to that. And so I think if you guys are listening here and present, the Sorcerer's Stone is coming next.
We will do an episode on the Sorcerer's Stone.
We have to.
Yes, we most definitely have to. I'm trying to see if I have anything else about Sleepy Hollow that I want to talk about before.
Yeah, we don't want to end so quick.
No, not most definitely.
What was your general, like, if you're going to do some rating? You know, we have 1 to legendary, which is like 10. 10 is absolutely legendary. 1 is like, hey, that's every day.
I feel like this is a complicated one.
Because the Headless Horseman is actually quite varied. Like the where he comes from, where
and the amount of other stories that it inspires, its enduring ability through the centuries,
through the decades and centuries. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about like people in the 900s that are talking about.
That's like one of the things that we haven't considered a lot of the times when we're rating things is like how far removed from the actual events the legend still survives through.
This one's hard to remove ourselves from because it keeps on re-representing itself. The Headless Horseman keeps on becoming present. It's not like Sir Orfeo, which happened so long ago.
Right, because you have Sir Orfeo is the proper noun with that, but the Headless Horseman could be a reinterpretation from different cultures.
And come through those like little portals anytime. We'd see.
Exactly.
And so it's like the Headless Horseman might come back tomorrow. Sir Orfeo will never come back.
I would give Sleepy Hollow and the Headless Horseman. So we're wrapping it into the Headless Horseman, not just Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Hessian Horseman.
Hessian Horseman. I'm gonna give him a 7.
A 7? Why a 7?
I would say
That's not very high compared to some.
no. It's
But
not.
it's not low by any.
It's not.
Still
It's
pretty
not
good.
low and it's not high. It's kind of in the middle as far as like the ratings go that we give.
Why don't we ever give 5s or 4s? We never do.
Because we eliminate those before we even start.
That's true.
We could do an episode on something that I don't like, and we could give it like a 4 or 5. Let me think about something, and we'll give it a
We'll
low.
one day do it.
Yes.
For right now, so you say a 7, okay. Why not 8, 9, 10?
I would say the lack of specific instances of like folklore that we see before the Sleepy Hollow legend would kind of limit it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't have enough tangible stuff to go on. And when I looked a lot for current instances of Headless Horseman or current instances of supernatural stuff happening in the Sleepy Hollow area, and I couldn't find anything at all. I even looked on like paranormal maps on the internet to try to like pinpoint where there might be other instances of stuff happening nearby, and I couldn't even find Sleepy Hollow like on those maps a lot.
So
So it seems very fictional a lot of the time.
yeah, so the paranormal is kind of removed space.
Or the realness of the paranormal, if
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes sense.
Like it's not consistent. Okay.
Like it's not alive and well. Like it seems too much like a story and not like something that's ongoing.
And I think I'm going to agree with you. Even in the story of Sleepy Hollow, there seems to be some, a lot where the writer is even like, "Hey, this might just be fake. It might just
Right.
be." And so, like, even the writer himself is not really convinced.
He's not convinced of it.
He's not convinced of the legendary depiction of it. This is just a folklore.
It's kind of set up to be a product of their superstitious gullibility of those people. And one of the interesting things that I meant to mention earlier is that I was going to say that it doesn't seem like being a school teacher is a very good job at Sleepy Hollow because they haven't had one for a while because they don't value learning very much. It says that the only books in Sleepy Hollow were used to paper the windows where they had broken at the schoolhouse. And that they were just like covering up the holes in the broken windows.
holes in a broken window.
And one of the things that happened after Ichabod was, after he was spirited away or whatever, is that they burned his book collection.
Yeah, they did a book burn.
They did the old fashioned book burning.
Old fashioned
Yes.
burn.
And they got rid of all them literature. Yeah.
Get rid of that literature. You can't handle it.
No, we're not having that here.
Devil's work.
Yep. So it just shows that they didn't value very highly any sort of like advanced education,
Which makes them more skeptical.
and more superstitious
Yeah,
too.
more superstitious. And so I'm gonna take a dive here and go. I don't get me wrong, I like the story. It's a fun read. It's a good read. But as a legend, 6.
A 6.
A 6.
I feel like you almost wanted to say 5.
I did almost want to say 5, but then I felt bad.
No, it's okay. If you say 5, then we can average it out to be a 6.
Yeah, we can average it out for
Yeah.
it's
So
a 6.
Jesse's official position
five.
is
Official
5,
five.
and we'll average it out for Legends and Libations to be a 6.
6, yeah. Legends
Yes.
and Libations suggest that this legend
I think
is a
that's
6.
good. Mm-hmm.
But Pumpkin is freaking
A
fantastic.
10. I'll give Pumpkin a 10.
Yeah, straight 10. It's
Yes.
so good.
We haven't given a 10.
For alcohol.
No,
oh,
we
yeah.
gave 9 to Absinthe, I think.
Yeah, but man, Pumpkin, guys. This beer is like
Is legendary.
is legendary.
Yes.
And I think as much as like there's this really goofy picture on the front of it, Southern Tier pulls off a really good beer. Go find at your local store. I hope you can find it.
It's like the complete opposite of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Like when I read it or like listened to the audiobook of it, I was kind of disappointed with how much material was lacking, I guess. The Pumpkin is one of those things, oh, I've never heard of the Pumpkin before.
Yeah.
And it completely under-promises, over-delivers, unlike Sleepy Hollow, which over-promises and under-delivers.
100%. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Legends and Libations.
Our second ever video.
Second video. We like having you guys here. We like being part of your guys' lives. And if you guys do want any particular legends, feel free to write us. We have Instagram, we have Facebook,
We are now on YouTube.
we're on YouTube.
We've gotten quite a few requests for some different legends coming up. I think we might have a guest in the future.
Yeah,
at some point.
please reach out, and if you want us to go over your libation, if you want to provide a libation, we'll of course go over it. We love that idea.
Give us our honest review.
Honest review, which I think we did pretty well.
Most of the time, it's the first time that we've ever tried any of these things.
Yeah, we're
is
trying
on,
to
on
really-
the show. We've never tried them before.
Admittedly, Guinness.
I mean, yeah,
I've tried
Guinness.
that like five
It's just
trillion
Guinness. We've had Guinness before.
Guinness.
Yes.
But the other two are very
Yes.
rare.
Like pumpkin. All right. So,
Anyways,
continue sipping through history. I'm
And-
Matthew.
I'm Jesse, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween from Legends and Libations.